Something small and warm moved across the pillow. She felt tiny teeth, gentle but insistent, tugging at her dark hair. Her eyes opened slowly in the dim light of her cabin aboard the ship Harmony's edge. Three small furry faces stared down at her, their 6 eyes glowing softly in the darkness. "Your briefing awaits, Commander Mother," the smallest one chirped in clear standard language. Smiled despite her exhaustion. 6 months ago, she never would have imagined waking up like this. 6 months ago, these three small beings would have died with the rest of their species, but humans had said no to that future. She sat up carefully, and the three cubs climbed onto her lap. Their fur was soft, colored in shades of silver and blue. They looked like cats from Earth, but with 6 eyes arranged in pairs down their small faces and tails that could grip things like extra hands. They were beautiful creatures, and they were dying. "Good morning, good morning, good morning," said, touching each small head gently. They purred, a sound that vibrated through her hands and made her heart feel full. The smallest pressed her face against palm. "The council ship arrives today. Captain Jin says you must prepare." Sighed, "Yes, the briefing." The Galactic Council wanted to inspect how humans were caring for the children. They wanted to decide if humans were doing it right, whatever that meant. She stood and walked to the small bathroom, the three cubs following close behind. They always followed her. They followed all their human caretakers like shadows, afraid to be alone. She understood why. They was dying. Their son had begun releasing radiation that their bodies could not handle. Their fur fell out. Their skin developed painful sores. The adults could survive a few years with medicine, but the children got sick so fast. They had begged the Galactic Council for help. Every species in the council offered sympathy. They sent messages of support. They held meetings. But when they asked if they could send their children to other worlds to save them from the radiation, the answer was always no. Too risky, too complicated. Cross-species care was unprecedented. What if diseases spread? What if the children died anyway? Better to let them die at home. Then Earth got the message. The human response was simple: send us your children, we will figure it out. The council thought humans were crazy. Doctor, the ships, had explained it to one night over tea. They think we are reckless. They say we do not understand the complexity of caring for an alien species, but humans have been doing this for thousands of years. Had nodded. She grew up on Earth in the countryside near Old Seoul. Her family had dogs, cats, chickens, and once even a baby deer that had been orphaned. Her mother always said the same thing: if something needs help, you help it. You figure out how later. That was the human way. While other species formed committees and studied the risks, Earth sent ships. 1,247 cubs were scattered across human vessels and colonies now. All of them were alive. All of them were learning and growing. And all of them called their human caretakers mother or father with the same word they used for their birth parents. Dressed in her uniform while the cubs watched, the middle one tilted his head. "Will the council take us away?" "No," said firmly. She knelt down to their level. "I promise. They just want to see that you are healthy and happy." "We are happy," the oldest said quietly, "but I miss my birth mother." His heart clenched. She pulled close. "I know, sweetie, your mother loves you very much. That's why she sent you to us, to keep you safe." The cubs had arrived in cold sleep pods 6 months ago. Had been assigned 3 of them, chosen randomly by the computer. When they woke up, scared and crying in a strange place, she had held them. She had sung to them even though she could not sing well. She had promised them over and over that they were safe. It took 2 weeks before they stopped crying for their mothers every night. It took a month before they started calling Commander Mother. She had cried the first time, said it, pressing her small face against his neck and purring. Now they were her children too. She would die before she let anyone take them away. The ship's intercom crackled. "Commander, please report to the bridge." Captain Jin Park's voice was calm but serious. Took the cubs to the ship's nursery where other children played under the watchful eyes of crew members. The room was bright and warm, filled with climbing structures and soft places to sleep. Human children's toys mixed with objects from that the adults had sent with the cubs. Everything smelled like cleaning solution and the sweet scent of fur. "Be good," told her three. "I will be back soon." "We are always good," said proudly. The other cubs laughed and left feeling slightly better. On the bridge, Captain Jin stood looking at a massive council station hung in space ahead of them, all sharp angles and cold metal. Next to Jin stood Doctor and Ambassador, Earth's representative to the council. "They are ready for us," Jin said without turning around. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been in the military for 30 years before taking this assignment. "Ambassador will speak first, but they want to question you directly, Commander. They want to know about daily care routines, medical treatments, psychological development." "They want to find something wrong," said bitterly. She pushed her glasses up her nose. "They want proof that we are harming the cubs so they can take them away." "Then we show them the truth," said. "The cubs are thriving. They are learning 3 languages, they attend classes, they play, they laugh. They are alive." Ambassador turned to face her. He was an older man with kind eyes and gray streaking through his black hair. "Commander, they will try to twist everything you say. They will call your care emotional contamination. They will say treating the cubs like family is inappropriate. They will say humans lack proper scientific detachment." "Good," said. "Because scientific detachment is why their children were dying while they held meetings." Jin almost smiled. "That is exactly the attitude that terrifies them, Commander." The council station grew larger on the thought about small face, about the way laughed when she tickled his belly, about how held her hand when they walked through the ship's corridors. She thought about all the other cubs on all the other human ships and colonies. Cubs who were learning to read, to play games, to feel safe again. The other species had asked the wrong question. They had asked, "How do we keep them alive?" Humans asked, "How do we help them live?" There was a difference, a huge difference. "I am ready," said. The ship docked with the station, walked through the airlock with Ambassador beside her. Behind them came, carrying data tablets filled with medical reports and development assessments. They entered the council chamber, a vast circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers. Representatives from a dozen species stared down at them. The insect-like beings with clicking mandibles, the floating in tanks of water, the who looked like walking crystals, others she did not recognize. And then, to her surprise, she felt small weights on her shoulder and back. She turned her head slightly, had climbed onto her shoulder, tiny claws gripping her uniform, and pressed against her legs. "You are Pack," said firmly. "Pack stays together." Wanted to send them back to protect them from whatever was coming, but she understood. They needed to be here. They needed to show the council who they had become. The lead counselor, a named Thresh, spoke in a buzzing voice. "We are here to assess human custody of juveniles. The council has concerns about your methods." Straightened her shoulders, feeling warm weight against her neck. "Then let me address those concerns." The briefing began. The council chamber felt cold despite the environmental controls. Stood in the center of the circular room while representatives from 12 different species watched from elevated seats. Remained perched on her shoulder, and she could feel the cub's small heart beating fast against her neck. Counselor Thresh, the representative, clicked his mandibles together before speaking. "Commander, how many juveniles are currently under human supervision?" 1,247, answered clearly. "All of them are alive and healthy." A ripple of movement went through the council. A representative, floating in her water tank, spoke through a translation device. "Alive is not the same as properly cared for. We have received reports that humans are treating these children as pets rather than sentient beings." Felt anger flash through her, but she kept her voice calm. "Who reported this?" "That is not relevant," Thresh said quickly. What is relevant is whether humans have the proper facilities and knowledge to care for a species you have only known for 6 months. Ambassador stepped forward. If the council would examine the data, you will find that. We want to hear from the caretaker, another counselor interrupted. This one was, his crystalline body refracting light across the chamber. Commander, describe a typical day in your care. Took a breath. The cubs wake up around 700 hours. They eat breakfast, usually a mix of protein paste supplemented with nutrients that doctor developed specifically for their biology. After breakfast, they attend educational programs for 3 hours. They learn standard language, mathematics, and Earth history. They also learn their own history and language from recorded lessons their parents sent with them. They learn human subjects, the representative asked. This is contamination of their culture. They learn everything, said firmly. After education time, they play for 2 hours. Physical activity is important for their development. Then lunch, more learning time focused on practical skills, and evening time for socialization and bonding. They go to sleep around 2,000 hours after a bedtime story. Bedtime story, Thresh clicked. This is an emotional attachment behavior. Yes, said simply, it is. This is the problem, the counselor said. His voice sounded like wind chimes. Humans are bonding with these children as if they were human offspring. This is inappropriate. It compromises objective care. Doctor could not stay quiet anymore. She stepped forward, her hands shaking slightly as she held up a data tablet. The cubs in human care have 0 fatalities. 0. The cubs that remained in council-approved observation facilities have a 34% mortality rate. Our inappropriate bonding is keeping them alive. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Several counselors spoke at once, their translation devices creating a chaos of sound. Pressed closer to his neck, frightened, reached up and gently stroked the cub's head. Order, Thresh demanded. When the chamber quieted, he focused his compound eyes on. Doctor, those facilities were designed for observation, not long-term care. It is an unfair comparison. Then why did the council not design facilities for long-term care? Shot back. They asked for help 8 months ago. You had time. We had committees studying the situation, the representative said coldly. Proper care requires proper planning. Proper planning while children die, Ambassador said quietly, but his words carried through the chamber. Earth did not have the luxury of committees. We had dying children and empty beds. We made those beds work. A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber, and perhaps that is the problem. Everyone turned. A human man stood from one of the observer seats. He was middle-aged, thin, with tired eyes. He walked down to the chamber floor. I am Dr. Wu Han, researcher from Luna Station. I have been studying the resettlement independently. Felt her stomach tighten. She did not know this man, but something about his expression worried her. Dr. Wu Han pulled up his own data display in the center of the chamber. My research shows concerning patterns. The cubs are indeed healthy physically, but psychologically they are becoming too human. They adopt human gestures, human speech patterns, human emotional responses. In another generation, culture will be completely absorbed into human culture. We are not saving them. We are erasing them. The council members leaned forward with interest. Thresh clicked loudly. This is what we feared. Humans are consuming another species through kindness. That is not true, said, but doubt crept into her voice. Was it true? Were they changing the cubs too much? As if reading her thoughts, spoke up from her shoulder. Her small voice was clear in the quiet chamber. My birth mother died in isolation. She called for her pack, but no one came. She died alone in an observation facility while the council studied the best way to help her. The chamber went silent. Every eye turned to the small cub perched on his shoulder. Continued, her voice steady despite her small size. Commander Mother comes when I call. Every time, when I wake up scared, she is there. When I am hungry, she feeds me. When I am sad, she holds me. That is why I am alive and my birth mother is not. Not because of science, because someone cared. Spoke next from beside Sleg. I still know my songs. Commander Mother helped me learn them. I still pray to the 3 moons even though I cannot see them. Commander Mother set up a projector so I can see them on the ceiling. I am still. But now I am also part of a new pack. Is that wrong? Dr. Wu Han looked uncomfortable. The cubs are too young to understand the long-term implications. I am 6 cycles old, interrupted, his small voice sharp. On my world, that is old enough to begin learning my place in the pack. I have learned it. My place is with Commander Mother and my birth mother both. Why must I choose only one? The counselor leaned forward. An interesting question, young one, but your birth mother is still on your dying world. She sent you away to save your life. I know, said softly. I think about her every day. Felt tears threatening. She knew the cubs missed their parents. They sometimes cried at night, calling for mothers and fathers who were light years away. It broke her heart every time. Ambassador spoke into the heavy silence. The council keeps asking if humans are doing this correctly, but you are asking the wrong question. The right question is, are the cubs alive, healthy, and happy? The answer is yes. Everything else is secondary. Everything is not secondary, Thresh insisted. Cultural preservation matters. Proper protocols matter. The council cannot simply allow any species to take in refugees without oversight. Then provide oversight, said. Come to our ships, visit our colonies, see how the cubs actually live, but do not take them away based on fears and theories. The representative made a bubbling sound in her tank. The council needs time to properly assess the situation. We propose a temporary suspension of human custody while we conduct field assessments. No, said immediately. The word came out harder than she intended. You will not take them. Commander, you do not have authority, Thresh began. I have the authority of someone who kept a promise, interrupted. She felt claws tighten on her shoulder. When these cubs arrived, they were terrified. They had been ripped from their parents, put into cold sleep, and sent to strangers. They woke up on a ship full of aliens they had never seen before, and I promised them they were safe. I promised them I would protect them. I will not break that promise. Emotional attachment is clouding your judgment, Dr. Wuhan said, but he sounded uncertain now. Good, said. I hope it does, because clear judgment said to let them die. Emotional attachment said to save them. I will take emotional attachment every time. The council members talked among themselves in their various languages. Finally, Thresh spoke again. The council will vote, but first we will conduct a 30-day field assessment. Teams will visit human colonies and vessels. They will observe, document, and report. After 30 days, we will vote on whether human custody should continue. Ambassador nodded slowly. We accept these terms. We welcome your inspection teams. We have nothing to hide. The assessment begins immediately, Thresh said. This session is concluded. As the council members filed out, Dr. Wuhan approached. Up close, she could see deep sadness in his eyes. I am not trying to harm them, Commander. I am trying to save their culture. Their culture survives in them, said quietly. Not in isolation chambers or proper protocols, in their songs and prayers and memories, in the stories they tell and the values they hold. We are not erasing that. We are giving them a place to keep it alive. Dr. Wuhan looked at the 3 cubs, then back at. He nodded slowly and walked away without another word. Outside the council chamber, Ambassador put a hand on shoulder. 30 days. We need to show them what human care really means. Looked down at and then reached up to stroke soft fur. Then let them see everything, the good and the difficult. Let them see what it really means to be family. The cubs pressed close to her as they walked back to the ship. Behind them, the council station grew smaller. Ahead, 30 days of inspection awaited, but was not afraid anymore. The truth was on their side. The cubs were alive, loved, and thriving. Sometimes that was all that mattered. The colony world New Sol looked beautiful from orbit. Green continents spread across blue oceans, with white clouds drifting in patterns that reminded of old Earth. This world held 347 cubs, the largest concentration outside of Earth itself. If the Council wanted to understand human care, this was the place to see it. Dr. Wu Han led the inspection team down from their shuttle. With him came two observers, in a mobile water tank, and a whose crystalline body sparkled in the afternoon sun. They looked uncomfortable in the warm air, scanning the area as if expecting danger. Met them at the landing pad with Captain Jin and Ambassador. Behind them stood Mayor, the colony's administrator. She was a short woman with sharp eyes and a welcoming smile that did not quite hide her nervousness. "Welcome to New Sol," said. "We have prepared a full tour of our facilities. You will see our schools, medical centers, residential areas, and community spaces." Dr. Wu Han nodded. "We want to see everything, including the difficult parts, problems with integration, medical issues, behavioral concerns." "We will show you reality," said simply, "nothing hidden." They started at the central school complex. It was a low, wide building surrounded by gardens and play areas. Children's voices floated through open windows, a mix of human speech and chittering. As they approached, saw cubs climbing trees alongside human children, their superior agility making them natural leaders in the games. Inside the school, they entered a classroom where human and children sat together. The teacher, a young woman named Ms. Sierra Park, was showing a holographic display of Earth's solar system. Several cubs had their hands raised eagerly. Dr. Wu Han interrupted the lesson. "May we observe?" Ms. Park nodded, though she looked uncertain. The children stared at the strange visitors with wide eyes. "Continue your lesson," Dr. Wu Han said. "Pretend we are not here." Ms. Park resumed teaching. She pointed to Mars on the display. "This planet is similar in some ways to the— Can anyone tell me how?" A cub named raised her hand. "Both have red soil, both have thin air, but Mars is colder and has no life." "Very good," Ms. Park said. "And why does Mars have no life while yours does?" A human boy spoke up. "Because it has a thicker atmosphere and water, and because they evolved to live there." Ms. Park smiled. "Exactly. Every world is unique and life adapts to." Dr. Wu Han spoke again, addressing the children directly. "Do you children miss your—" The classroom went quiet, looked down at her desk. Another cub, smaller than the others, started to cry softly. Ms. Park stepped forward, her expression tight. "Dr. Wu, these children are only—" "They should be able to answer," Dr. Wu Han said. "This is part of our assessment." Lifted her head. "Yes, I miss the 3 moons and the purple grass and the singing stones in the canyon near my birth home. But my world is dying. My birth mother sent me here so I could live. I honor her choice by living well." An 8-year-old human girl named Jinna spoke from the back of the classroom. "Teaches me songs. I teach her to read chapter books in Korean. We help each other. Why is that wrong?" Dr. Wu Han did not answer immediately. One of the observers moved closer to examine the classroom materials. On the walls hung artwork from both human and children, pictures of Earth and pictures of the mixed together. In one corner stood a small shrine with 3 moons painted above it, where cubs could say their traditional prayers. The observer bubbled in her tank. Her translator spoke in a flat voice. "The integration appears thorough, but is culture being maintained or merely displayed?" Stood up from her desk. She walked to the shrine and began to sing. It was a song, haunting and beautiful, in a language humans could not fully pronounce. The other cubs joined in, their voices creating harmonies that made the air feel thick with emotion. When the song ended, turned back to face the observers. "Ms. Park helped us build this shrine. She learned our prayers even though her mouth cannot make all the sounds correctly. She cries with us when we miss our homes. She celebrates our festivals. We are not forgetting who we are. We are becoming who we will be. The inspection team moved on to the medical center. Doctor met them there, along with Doctor, the colony's chief medical officer. The facility was clean and bright, with equipment adapted for both human and physiology. We have had very few serious medical issues, Doctor explained as they walked through the wards. Some respiratory infections early on until we adjusted the air mixture. Some allergic reactions to certain earth foods which we now avoid. Overall health is excellent. As if to challenge his words, alarms suddenly blared. Nurses ran past and Doctor's face went pale. Emergency in Ward 3. They followed him to a room where a small cub lay on a medical bed, struggling to breathe. His fur was matted with sweat, and his 6 eyes were half closed. Human doctors surrounded him, working quickly. Push through immediately. What happened? Respiratory infection, a nurse said quickly. It came on fast. His oxygen levels are dropping. The inspection team watched from the doorway as the humans worked. They tried medication after medication. Nothing worked. The cub's breathing got worse. We need to try the combined treatment, said. Mix the anti-inflammatory with human broad-spectrum antibiotics. That has never been tested, Doctor said. Then we test it now, replied. Get me the compounds. Dr. Wu-Han stepped forward. You cannot experiment on a child without proper protocols. He will die without intervention, said flatly. Watch or leave, your choice. The inspection team stayed. They watched as mixed treatments from 2 different species medical knowledge. She administered the compound carefully, monitoring the cub's vital signs every few seconds. Minutes passed like hours. Slowly the cub's breathing eased. His oxygen levels stabilized. Color returned to his fur. After 20 minutes, he opened his eyes and whispered, Mother. A human woman rushed to his side. She was crying as she took his small hand. I am here, I am here. Sagged against the wall, exhausted, Doctor put a hand on her shoulder. 18 hours you have been awake now. I will sleep when he is stable, said. The observer spoke for the first time, his voice like crystal bells. Why do you push yourself so hard for a child not of your species? Looked at him with tired eyes. Would you leave? If this was your child, would you leave? The had no answer. That evening, the inspection team was given quarters in the colony's guest house. Dr. Wu-Han could not sleep. He walked through the quiet streets, thinking about everything he had seen. He heard singing from a nearby house and followed the sound. Through a window, he saw sitting in a comfortable room with Anne. She was reading to them from a Some Earth story about rabbits and adventure. When she finished, she tucked blankets around each cub carefully. She adjusted the room temperature. She checked that each had water nearby. She sat by their beds until they fell asleep, her hand resting on small head. Dr. Wu-Han watched for a long time. He thought about his own family, lost in a colony disaster 5 years ago. His wife and son, killed when life support failed. He had not been able to save them. He had not been there. He understood now. His opposition to the human program was not scientific. It was fear. Fear of attachment. Fear of loss. Fear of caring so much that losing hurt too much to bear. He had built walls around his heart and called it professionalism. The next morning, the inspection team visited the community center. It was a large building where humans gathered for celebrations and ceremonies. The walls were decorated with art from both cultures. On one side hung pictures of Earth seasons. On the other side hung tapestries showing the 3 moons in different phases. Mayor explained the weekly schedule. Mondays are human cultural nights. Wednesdays are cultural nights. Fridays are mixed celebrations where we create new traditions together. New traditions, the observer asked. You are inventing hybrid culture. We are living, said simply. Culture is not a museum display, it is how people live together. A group of cubs ran past, chasing each other in some game that mixed human tag with hunting practice. They laughed in two languages, their joy needing no translation. Dr. Wu hand-pulled Ambassador aside. "I need to speak with you privately." They walked to a quiet garden. Dr. Wuhan stared at flowers that mixed Earth species with plants brought from other worlds. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "My research was correct in its data but wrong in its conclusions. The cubs are changing, but all children change as they grow. The question is not whether they are becoming different from their parents. The question is whether they are healthy, loved, and given the chance to choose who they will be." Ambassador nodded slowly. "And your answer?" "They are thriving," Dr. Wuhan said. "Not despite human care, but because of it. Because humans do not see care as a scientific problem to solve. They see it as a relationship to build." "Will you tell the council this?" "Yes," Dr. Wuhan said. "But there is something else. News came this morning from space. That has 3 months before total atmospheric collapse. The remaining adult need immediate evacuation." Ambassador's expression darkened. "The council has been debating this for weeks. They keep demanding more studies, more risk assessments." 127 adults will die while they debate," Dr. Wuhan said. He looked at directly. "What will Earth do?" Ambassador smiled grimly. "What we always do, the right thing even if it is the hard thing." That night received an urgent message. She gathered and close. "I need to tell you something. There is a chance we can save your birth parents. Bring them here to live with us." His eyes widened. "Truly?" "Maybe," said carefully. "It will be dangerous. The council may try to stop us, but we are going to try." Pressed against her side. "If my birth mother comes, will you still be my commander mother?" Pulled all 3 cubs into a tight embrace. "Always. Love does not divide, little ones. It multiplies. You will have 2 mothers and twice the people who would move stars to keep you safe." The cubs purred together, a sound of hope and trust. Outside, ships were already being prepared for launch. Earth had made its decision. They were going back for the adults, council approval or not, because that was what family did. And all of them were family now. The emergency meeting aboard Harmony's Edge included every human captain in the sector. 12 ship commanders appeared on the main, their faces grave. Captain Jin Park stood at the center of the bridge. His jaw set in a way had learned meant he had already made his decision. "The council refuses to authorize an evacuation mission," Jin said without preamble. "They say the risk is too high. The radiation levels near thee are increasing daily. They calculate a 37% chance of crew casualties. They want more time to study options." "How much time do they have?" asked Captain Song from the vessel Dancing Star. 73 days, Doctor answered from her station. "After that, radiation levels will be fatal even with maximum protective gear." "And the council wants to study options," Captain from Swift Current said bitterly, "while people die." Ambassador appeared on another screen, broadcasting from the council station. "I have tried everything: formal requests, appeals to individual counselors, arguments based on moral obligation. They are unmoved. Several counselors have suggested that since we saved the children, we have done enough. They call the adults acceptable losses." Silence filled the bridge. Felt cold anger building in her chest. Sat on her shoulder as always, and she felt the cub's small body tense. Captain Jin spoke again, his voice steady. "I contacted Earth Command directly, asked for orders." "And someone asked?" "The response was immediate," Jin said. A small smile crossed his face. "Go get them. Exact words from Admiral, we do not leave family behind. Go get them. We will handle the council." The mood on the bridge shifted immediately. Captains on the screen sat. Captain Song grinned. "When do we leave?" "Immediately," Jin said. 12 ships, every vessel we can spare. We will have 73 days to evacuate 127 from a world bathed in lethal radiation. The Council will likely impose sanctions on Earth. They may restrict our trade access. They may even threaten expulsion from the galactic community. "Do we care?" asked Captain. "No," Jin said simply, "we do not." The meeting ended with quick coordination of supplies, routes, and protocols. As the other captains signed off, saw something she had never seen before: human unity of purpose. No debates, no committees, no risk assessments, just immediate, unanimous agreement to do the dangerous thing because it was right. Later that evening, sat in her quarters with and she had to tell them what was happening, but the words felt too big. "You are going to save them," said before could speak. The small cub's 6 eyes were wise beyond her age. "You are going to bring our birth parents here." "Yes," said, "but there are risks, the radiation." "Will hurt you," finished. "We know, we have heard the crew talking." Climbed into his lap, pressing his face against her chest. "What if you do not come back?" His heart clenched. She wrapped her arms around all 3 cubs. "I will come back, I promise." "You cannot promise that," said quietly. "No one can promise that." He was right, took a breath. "You are right. I cannot promise I will be safe, but I can promise I will do everything possible to come back to you. And if something happens to me, Captain Jin and Doctor will care for you. You will never be alone." Touched face with one small paw. "Why do you risk so much for you have never met?" "Because they are your parents," said simply. "Because they made the hardest choice any parent can make. They sent you away to save your lives. They gave up everything so you could live. How can I not try to give them back to you?" The cubs were quiet for a long moment, then spoke. "This is what makes humans different. Other species ask what is logical. Humans ask what is right, even when right is dangerous." The fleet departed 2 days later. 12 ships, their engines burning bright as they jumped to faster-than-light speeds. The journey to space would take 11 days. During that time, crews trained for radiation exposure protocols. They practiced evacuation procedures. They prepared for every possible emergency. Spent hours in the medical bay with learning how to treat radiation sickness. The symptoms were horrible: nausea, burns, organ damage. She memorized medication dosages and emergency procedures until she dreamed about them. On the 7th day, Captain Jin called a general assembly. Every crew member gathered in the ship's main hall. The cubs came too, sitting with the adults they had bonded with. Jin stood at the front, his face serious. "You all know what we are doing. You know the risks. The Council has already imposed preliminary sanctions on Earth. Our trading status is suspended. 3 species have recalled their ambassadors from human space. They have suggested that if we proceed with this mission, humanity may be expelled from the galactic community entirely." He paused, looking around the room at his crew. "Earth Command has given us a choice. Any ship can turn back now without penalty. Any crew member who wants to return to human space will be transported on the supply vessel arriving tomorrow. There will be no shame, no consequences to your career. This is a volunteer mission now." Held her breath. Around her, crew members looked at each other. Would anyone leave? Lieutenant stood up. He was a young man, barely 25, who worked in engineering. "Permission to speak, Captain." "Granted." "I grew up on Mars Colony," said. "When I was 8, there was a critical failure in our section. Life support failed. We were trapped with maybe an hour of air left. Earth sent a rescue ship that arrived in 47 minutes. They broke every speed regulation to get there in time. The pilot got court-martialed for the violations, but he saved 118 people, including me." Looked around at his fellow crew members. "That pilot was your father, Captain. He taught me that sometimes breaking rules is the only way to do what is right. I am not leaving." One by one, others stood. A medical officer, a navigator, a weapons specialist, the cook, the communications officer, every single person stood. No one was leaving. Captain Jin's eyes glistened, but his voice stayed steady. Then we finish what we started, for their children, for the principle that life matters more than regulations. The ships reached space on schedule. They appeared on a beautiful planet of purple vegetation and silver oceans. But instruments showed the terrible truth. Radiation levels in the atmosphere were climbing every hour. The protective ozone layer was nearly gone. The adults waited at a central gathering point. They had been told Earth ships were coming, but many had not believed it. When the human fleet appeared in orbit, their disbelief turned to shock. Captain Jin led the first landing party. Went with him, along with Doctor and 20 crew members in full protective suits. The radiation counters on their suits clicked steadily, measuring the invisible danger surrounding them. An elderly female approached them. She was tall and elegant despite her age, her silver fur marked with the traditional patterns of a clan leader. She looked at the humans with all 6 eyes, and tears rolled down her furred face. "You came back," she whispered. "We sent you our children thinking we would never see them again, and you came back for us." Captain Jin removed his helmet briefly, despite the radiation risk. "They are our children now too," he said. "That makes you family. We do not leave family behind." The matriarch, her name was, pressed her forehead against Jin's in a traditional greeting. "You do not understand what you have given us, not just rescue, hope. The galaxy told us we were acceptable losses. You told us we matter." The evacuation began immediately. It was brutal work. The radiation made everyone sick within hours. Crew members vomited in their suits but kept working. They carried who were too weak to walk. They loaded transport after transport, flying up to the waiting ships through dangerous atmospheric conditions. On the 3rd day, Lieutenant made a terrible choice. His shuttle was full, ready to launch, when an elderly male collapsed near the landing pad. The male was barely breathing, clearly dying from radiation exposure. Unsealed his suit and ran to He carried him to the shuttle, using his own body to shield the elder from additional radiation. But the shuttle was full. No more room. Took off his seat restraints and gave them to the elder. "Take him up," he ordered the pilot. "Sir, you cannot stay here," the pilot protested. "That is an order," said. "Get him to safety." The shuttle launched. Stood on the landing pad, his radiation counter screaming warnings. He would have to wait 36 hours for the next shuttle rotation. At current exposure levels, he might not survive that long. When Captain Jin heard what happened, he immediately redirected a shuttle to get. But the young lieutenant had bought his ticket. 36 hours in that radiation would leave marks that might never heal. Doctor worked desperately when was finally brought aboard. She used every technique she knew, including the combined treatment she had developed for. Survived, but he would spend months in recovery. When visited him in the medical bay, smiled weakly. "Worth it," he whispered. "Did the elder survive?" "Yes," said. "He is asking to meet you." Tell him he would have done the same." By day 70, all 127 adults were evacuated. 3 human crew members had severe radiation poisoning. 2 ships sustained critical damage and had to be towed. Earth faced severe sanctions from the Council. Trade agreements were suspended. Human ships were banned from several systems. But every single was alive. And in the medical bay of Harmony's Edge, Matriarch Held's hand while and slept nearby. Why asked, "Why risk so much?" Thought about her answer carefully. The galaxy keeps asking us to be logical, to calculate costs and benefits, to weigh lives against economics, but humans do not work that way. We ask different questions, not what is profitable, but what is right, not what is the benefit, but what kind of beings do we want to be? And we want to be the kind of beings who come back, who save families, who care when it is hard. Touched face gently with one paw. "The galaxy will punish you for this kindness." "Let them," said. "We have been punished for worse things. We can bear sanctions. What we cannot bear is looking these cubs in the eyes and saying we let their parents die because it was inconvenient to save them." The old smiled. "Then perhaps there is hope for this galaxy after all." 6 months after the evacuation, New Sol Colony held its largest celebration ever. The town square was decorated with banners showing both Earth and symbols. Music played, human instruments mixed with the traditional singing stones that hummed when the wind touched them just right. The smell of cooking filled the air, dishes from two worlds sharing the same tables. Stood at the edge of the square, watching families reunite. An adult male held his cub for the first time in over a year, both of them crying. A human family stood nearby, also crying, as they prepared to share their cub with his birth father. All around the square, these moments repeated. Joy and heartbreak mixed together in ways that made his chest hurt. And pressed against her legs, unusually quiet. They had met their birth mother Lyra 3 days ago when she arrived on the transport from Harmony's Edge. The reunion had been emotional and confusing. The cubs remembered their mother but felt strange with her. Lyra was almost a stranger now, despite their love. "Commander Mother," said softly, "will we have to leave you now?" Knelt down, bringing herself to eye level with the three cubs. "No, never, but we need to share you with your birth mother. She loves you so much. She sent you away to save your lives and it nearly killed her." "But you are our mother too," said, his voice breaking. "Yes," agreed. "I am, and nothing changes that." Lyra approached from across the square. She was a graceful female with silver and blue fur, thinner than she should be from the months of radiation exposure and evacuation stress. She stopped a few feet away, uncertain. "I do not want to take them from you," Lyra said quietly. "You saved their lives. You gave them a home when I could not." Stood and faced her. For a moment, the two mothers simply looked at each other, then stepped forward and touched her forehead to Lyra's in the greeting of deep respect. "They are our children," said. "Both of ours, not mine or yours, but ours. Can we do this together?" Lyra's eyes widened. "You would share them truly." "They do not need to choose," said. "They can have both of us, 2 homes, 2 mothers, twice the love." Spoke up, his voice small but clear, "like having 2 packs." "Exactly like that," Lyra said, her voice thick with emotion. "In the old ways, cubs often had multiple caretakers. Aunts, uncles, older siblings. Family was not one mother and one father. Family was everyone who loved you." Climbed up's leg to perch on her shoulder. "So we will live with you both, learn from you both." "Yes," and Lyra said together. The cubs seemed to relax. This was something they could understand, not choosing between loves but adding to them. Across the colony, other families reached similar conclusions. The adults did not want to simply take their children and leave. They had nothing to go back to, there was dead. And their children had built lives here, had bonded with humans who loved them. Why break those bonds? Mayor watched the celebrations from the government building, standing next to Ambassador and Dr. Wu Han. The researcher had changed dramatically in the past months. He no longer carried the same tired sadness. He had spent the months working with families, helping them figure out how to blend their lives. "It is working," Wu Han said, sounding slightly amazed. "Against all predictions, it is actually working." "You sound surprised," said with a smile. "I am," Wu Han admitted. Every model suggested cultural conflict, territorial disputes, confusion among the cubs, but instead, he gestured to the square below, where human and families mix together naturally. "They are creating something new." "That is what happens when you stop trying to preserve things in museums and start letting them live," Ambassador said. "Culture is not a dead thing to protect. It is alive. It changes. It grows." A commotion near the landing pad drew their attention. A council shuttle was arriving, unannounced. Councillor Thresh and 2 other council members emerged, their expressions unreadable. Met them at the pad with Captain Jin. She felt tension coil in her stomach. Were they here to finally expel humanity from the galactic community? Thresh's mandibles clicked as he looked around the colony. "We have come to conduct a final assessment." "You are welcome to look wherever you wish," Jin said carefully. "We have nothing to hide." The council members spent 3 days on New Seoul. They visited schools where human and children learned together. They observed medical facilities treating both species. They attended a joint cultural ceremony where humans learned dances and learned human songs. They watched families, blended families of two species, share meals and stories and lives. On the final day, Thresh requested a formal meeting in the colony's council chambers. Every major leader from the human community attended. The elders came too, led by Matriarch. Thresh stood at the front of the room, his body very still. "The council has reviewed all reports from the assessment period. We have analyzed the medical data, psychological evaluations, cultural integration metrics, and economic impact studies." He paused and felt everyone in the room hold their breath. "By every logical measure," Thresh continued, "this program should have failed. Cross-species child-rearing is unprecedented. The risks were enormous. The challenges seemed insurmountable." Another pause. "And yet here we are, 1,247 cubs, all alive, all healthy, all thriving. 127 adults rescued from certain death, families that should not exist but do, bonds that should not form but have." Thresh turned to look directly at. "You were right, Commander. We were asking the wrong questions. We asked, how do we keep them alive? You asked, how do we help them live? The difference is everything." Matriarch stood. "The people wish to make a formal statement. We no longer see ourselves as refugees temporarily sheltered by humans. We see ourselves as partners, as family. We wish to petition for permanent integration into human society with full cultural autonomy and shared governance." A murmur went through the room. This was bigger than anyone expected. Ambassador stood as well. "Earth accepts this petition. We welcome the people not as refugees but as citizens, as family." Thresh clicked his mandibles in what might have been approval. "The council has voted. By a margin of 9-3, we accept this unprecedented arrangement. Furthermore, 3 other species have expressed interest in similar programs. The wish to send 20 juveniles to human care. They have asked if humans would accept 5 of their elders who need specialized care. Even some families are considering the option." Felt dizzy. This was not just victory, it was transformation. Doctor, watching from the back of the room, spoke up. "The medical protocols we developed for they can be adapted for other species. I have been working with from 7 different worlds. We can share what we have learned." "That is precisely what we hope," Thresh said. "The galaxy has existed for thousands of years with clear boundaries between species. You humans are erasing those boundaries. Some counselors find this terrifying. Others find it inspiring. I find myself in the latter group." Later that evening, sat on her porch with both families, her cubs and their birth parents. Lyra had moved into the house next door, connected to by a shared garden. The cubs moved freely between both homes, claiming both as their own. Was reading aloud from a storybook, her standard pronunciation perfect now. Was teaching his birth mother how to use a human computer tablet. Slept curled against the side, exhausted from the day's excitement. "You know what this means," Lyra said softly. "The galaxy will never be the same. Other species will start doing this. Boundaries will blur. In a few generations, the question, 'What species are you?' might become as complicated as family trees." "Is that bad?" asked. "No," Lyra said with a smile. "It is beautiful, terrifying but beautiful. You humans keep asking why not, when everyone else asks why. You see walls and wonder why they exist. You see rules and wonder who made them. You see someone suffering and wonder why everyone else is just watching." Captain Jin appeared at the garden gate with Ambassador. "Sorry to interrupt, but we have news. Earth Command wants to establish the Refugee Response Fleet as a permanent service. They are asking for volunteers to crew it. The mission would be finding and helping species in crisis across the galaxy. Looked at her cubs, at Lyra, at the home they had built together. I cannot leave them. You would not have to, Jin said. The ships will have quarters for families, all of them. The idea is to show the galaxy what human care really means, not through presentations and data but through example, by living it. Looked up from her book. We would go to other worlds, help other species. If you want to, said, it would be dangerous sometimes. Like saving our birth parents was dangerous, asked. Similar. The three cubs looked at each other, having one of their silent conversations, then spoke for all of them. We want to help. We remember what it felt like to be scared and alone. If we can help others feel safe like Commander Mother made us feel safe, we want to do that. Lyra nodded slowly. I will go too. My cubs go, I go. That is what family means. Over the next months, the refugee response fleet took shape. 20 ships crewed by humans and working together. Each ship had families aboard, mixed species families who could show others what was possible. They responded to distress calls, evacuated populations from natural disasters, provided medical care to species without adequate facilities. Word spread through the galaxy. The human fleet that did not just observe but helped. That did not calculate risks before acting but acted because it was right. Some species welcomed them, others feared them, but slowly, inevitably, the galaxy began to change. Stood on the bridge of her new ship, the Unity's Promise, rode on her shoulder as always, now a year older and wiser but still small enough to perch there. A distress beacon blinked from a nearby system. A plague was spreading through a population. The local government was overwhelmed. Captain, we are receiving a message from the planetary government, the communications officer reported. They are asking if we can help. Smiled. A year ago, the galaxy would have held meetings about this. Committees would have formed. Risk assessments would have been conducted, and people would have died while everyone talked. Not anymore. Now there was another option. Respond affirmatively, ordered. Prepare medical teams and supply shuttles. We launch in 1 hour. Chirped in her ear. Another briefing, Commander Mother. Laughed. The word briefing had become their family code for any gathering, any mission, any moment where they came together with purpose. From that first morning when tiny teeth in her hair woke her up and cubs announced her briefing awaited to now, standing on a bridge about to save lives on a world they had never seen. Yes, little one said, another briefing, another chance to show the galaxy what family means, what compassion means, what humanity means. The ship turned toward the distressed world, engines bright against the stars. Behind them, 19 other ships followed. The refugee response fleet, carrying the radical message that life mattered more than regulations, that love was not limited by biology, and that the question was never why help, but always why not. In the medical bay, doctor prepared treatments. In engineering, lieutenant, recovered now but bearing scars, checked the shuttle systems. In the crew quarters, human and families prepared to do what they did best, care for those who needed caring for. And on the bridge, touched the small form on her shoulder and thought about how much the galaxy had changed in just 1 year, how much more it would change in the years to come. The walls between species were coming down, replaced by bridges built from compassion and stubbornness, and the radical belief that everyone deserved to matter to someone. The galaxy had said it was impossible, but humans had always specialized in making the impossible real. They just had to show everyone else how. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing toward another crisis, another chance to help, another opportunity to prove that family was not about biology or species or logic. Family was about showing up, about caring when it was hard, about looking at someone suffering and saying, "Not on my watch." That was the human way. And slowly, beautifully, terrifyingly, it was becoming the galaxy's way too. Tiny teeth tugged gently its hair. Small voice was content. Ready for the next briefing, Commander Mother. Smiled at the stars ahead. Always ready, little one, always. And the Unity's promise sailed on, carrying its message of hope to anyone who needed it. You are not alone. Help is coming. Family is coming. And family never gives up.